Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini, your complete holiday lighting specialist, meeting all your decorating needs. And they will be having a holiday lighting open house free event not next Tuesday, but in a few Tuesdays from now. Tuesday, October got my glasses, the 5th. 2021. It's Tuesday, October 5th from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And they are at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst. And you can see there all their wonderful decorations that they have in case you want to get your home decorated for the holidays, or perhaps you want to become a professional decorator. So if you do that and make that part of your business and you're interested, give them a call at 631 957 5106. And the website is liholidaylighting.com. And also brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number there for the best prices in town. OmniTrueValue.com, the website. That's what it looks like on the outside. And this is what they are getting in, folks. Salt. There's a salt shortage. Some of it is mined here, but a lot of it is brought in from overseas, and there's all sorts of bottlenecks. They are going to have the best prices when it comes to salt. So just bear that in mind. Check out their website, OmniTrueValue.com. Now, let's go to us. I have to find us. There we go. There we are. So anyway, I was just trying something new. I have to perfect it. I'm not the most dexterous person in the world when it comes to working all this technical stuff. I was always talent, Joe. I was not a producer. I was not a director. I was not an audio person, and that's kind of what I am now. So, among other things. So anyway,
That kind of looked like you were trying to put the slide into the slide projector, with the slide tray. Not a carousel tray,
it's
but
a
one of
little
those where you have to push it in and push it out or whatever.
it's a little awkward because I gotta speak and use my hands at the same time, which for an Italian should be an easy thing, but when you have to do something with those hands and start pushing buttons, it becomes a little more problematic. Okay, so I don't know about you. I kind of thought going into last weekend that most of this week would be relatively uneventful. This is days ago. And of course, now it's sort of evolved into something else, but it's a very strange week ahead that we have. We've got this severe weather risk, which is for tonight, oddly enough. And there's storms moving across Pennsylvania. You've got Nicholas down in the western Gulf along the Texas coast, about to make landfall there. And some of that moisture may try and come east, but who knows if it gets up here or not. And then you've got this Atlantic low that might develop later on this week. And the one constant in all of this, it's going to stay pretty humid for quite a while.
Yes, unfortunately, this is going to be going down in the record books, I think, as the summer of humidity. We've had more than our fair share. I could live with heat, but as long as the heat comes accompanied by dew points in the 50s, we have certainly not had that this particular summer season. And you're right, Joe. It's kind of interesting that we are going to be threatened by showers and storms, but probably not until, for the most part, after midnight tonight. And a couple of those could be on the gusty and nasty side. So something to watch in the overnight hours.
Yeah, SPC doesn't have a tornado, any tornado risk. It's less than 2%. It's mostly for wind, and oddly enough, for hail too. I saw in one of their discussions they mentioned something about a cold pool of air aloft, and the rather unstable atmosphere and the high dew points might be enough to produce wind and maybe a little bit of hail. But then on Wednesday. And we missed this yesterday, and because I didn't check, because 999 times out of 1,000, there's never anything for the Northeast and the long range. and I knew there wasn't going to be anything anywhere else. And then Timothy Veltman messaged me later on and said that there was something on its PC for the long range. So they've had severe weather risk in their long range for for parts of the Northeast on Wednesday. And that is going to be the next issue when that cold front comes through. And then what happens at the end of the week? Does this low develop offshore? Does it become something tropical? Does it get kicked out just to the east, in which case there won't be too much difficulty with it? Or are we going to have showery rains to deal with Wednesday night and Thursday into Thursday night? There's a lot of uncertainty here. And sometimes you look at the weather patterns and you see, and the weather maps and the models, and at the end of the day, you come up with an IDK forecast. I don't know. And that's sort of how I feel. That's sort of how I feel about it.
Yeah, and I mentioned yesterday that one local forecaster here in the Hudson Valley on Saturday morning was saying, well, I looked at some of the maps, and the GFS is suggesting a hurricane up the eastern seaboard for the end of the week. And I did a double take. I said, what is he talking about? And you pointed out that while there may be something, it certainly doesn't look like it's going to be potent enough to be in the class of a hurricane, but there may be some kind of a coastal development that may throw a monkey wrench in our weather as we move on toward the latter part of this week. Maybe that's all going to be dependent upon the weather front on the cold front on Wednesday, which may serve in its own right to bring us again the chance for some severe weather. We'll, hopefully this will all be coming more into focus over the next 24 to 48 hours.
Yes, we do have a poll tonight on the chat board. And that poll is the poll question tonight is a tropical storm. 4 tropical storms have impacted the Northeast this year in one form or another. Is a 5th system in the cards? So are we going to have a 5th system come into the Northeast? Now, Fred was one that tracked through the Northeast, but it kind of went pretty far to the west, as I recall. Really didn't have much impact on the coast, unless I'm not recalling correctly. But we had Elsa, Henri, and Ida. So is there going to, but we'll count that as one, since the Northeast is a rather large area. We'll include the Mid-Atlantic and the Northern Mid-Atlantic in that as well. Will there be a 5th, Mr. Rayo? What say you?
Oh, it's certainly possible. I mean, just because we are now just past the peak of the hurricane season, the tropical cyclone season, does not mean that we're going to see a rapid diminution in activity. And in fact, let us point out that Sandy, for example, was a storm that hit in October, and we could very well continue to see activity, very active hurricane or tropical cyclone season continue into October as well. I can't believe what you just said about 5 or 6 minutes ago, Joe, about looking long range and looking into the early part of October for one of our sponsors. But sure enough, yes, we're only just a little over a couple of weeks away from moving into the new month, and
day
this
6
year is going is flying by.
Day 16 on the long range is September 29th. And if those of well, I'm sure the snow lovers watching are, they're always looking for clues, even in July. I will just tell you that those who follow some long range, and I'm talking about people that I have high opinions of, they're not many, but there are some, are pointing to some of the climate models for the month of November, suggesting that we may have maybe a front end loaded winter this time around. And I thought about it, and I said, you know what? We've seen, we have seen these stretches where the trough comes into the eastern part of the United States. We have seen the NAO go negative a few times over the summer. And with other things that might be going on up in the polar regions, why not? Maybe we will have. Maybe what will happen is, Joe, we'll continue with this very warm and humid pattern for however long it lasts, and then one day a switch will be flipped, and all of a sudden It'll just be, it'll be fall and it'll feel like it, and we'll go from there.
Well, the old Farmer's Almanac, not to be confused with
The not so old,
Almanac.
right? This is the old Farmer's Almanac and the not so old Farmer's
so
Almanac.
old Farmer's Almanac.
Right.
And the old Farmer's Almanac is really pushing that this upcoming winter season is going to be significant here in the Northeast. Lots of cold, lots of snow, and also I think they're also suggesting that it could be a front end loaded winter. So we'll I mean, you could look at these predictions now. As I've said, when we get to the end of the winter season, nobody seems to ever quote them or remember what they said. So take it as it is.
Right.
And you're right, Joe. We've had so many in recent years. We've had so many of these winter patterns that have manifested themselves. Later in the season. Why not have a front-loaded winter? Why not have we had about 10, 12 years ago, I think we had a December with like 25 inches of snow at Central Park or here in the Northeast.
Was it
why not go for something like
wasn't
that?
it December of 20? Well, actually, I think we had two of them. Wasn't it 20? To December of 2029, whichever year the Boxing Day snowstorm was. And then I think the following year we had a big snowstorm. So I'm going to say 09.
2010.
And 2009 and 10. Those two Decembers back to back kind of broke the spell of Decembers where you didn't really get very much. But no matter, it has been a while. Bill Rogers was just asking that, and he also says he's worried about having to get a new car with all the shortages. He's got 205,000 miles on his car. Bill, that's practically brand new. I mean, I drove my last car to 299,960 miles on the odometer. Okay, I didn't do the last 40 because I didn't want to press my luck that the car would break down just as I was picking up my new one. So technically, as a rounding error, I had 300,000 miles. So you could take yours to 300,000 miles and then come back and talk to me. Okay, just kidding, of course. All
right. I got to tell you, in terms of cars, I mean, when you and I were young, Joe, I mean, like 100,000. Oh my goodness, he's got 100,000 miles on his car. Let me just say, now, today, in 2021, 20 years into the 21st century, you have 100,000 miles on your car. That's nothing. Today's 100,000 is like yesterday's 50,000. It's
and they do last. These cars do last. They do last a lot longer than the ones in our day. They went from lasting long to not lasting long. Now they're back to lasting quite long. That Toyota was a 2003. I drove it for the better part of the last 10 years of it. My daughter had it before that. All that commuting was very easy to just rack up the miles in a big way. Thank God it got 37 miles to the gallon. Otherwise, I'd be broke right now. Okay, on to the satellite loop tonight, Joe. If Nicholas was a little further offshore, this probably would be a hurricane. The satellite presentation on it is actually not half bad looking. There's that feathering that you see sometimes when storms are poised to strengthen, and it's still over water. And that's a strange spot along the Texas coast. There have been a few storms in their histories that have been inside 95 West and close to the coast that get in there and suddenly explode. Now it doesn't have a whole lot of time left to get to minimal hurricane. Top winds are at 65 miles an hour, and the circulation might be starting to get a little distorted as it gets closer to land. But still, all in all, from the standpoint of a tropical storm, this one is a high-end tropical storm, and they've gotten clobbered with rain along the Texas coastal bend, and they're going to continue to get clobbered with rain north of the center. So we're talking maybe, say, from Freeport, Port O'Connor, north and east into southwest Louisiana as that tropical moisture moves northward. And the other thing is you can see off the east coast, east of the Bahamas, we've got this disturbed weather here that the Hurricane Center when they put their new outlook, we'll check out to see what they've done with it in terms of the number. They had 50% earlier in the next 5 days. So we'll see if they left it alone or nudged it up. And then, Joe, if you followed this earlier today, I happened to notice it this morning. This cluster of thunderstorms pretty much moved across southern Michigan, and now it almost looked like a little derecho that went across southern Michigan and over toward Toronto, south of Toronto to Lake Erie. Now it's come out on the other side, and we have severe thunderstorm watches up for parts of central PA. We'll take a look at that in a moment. But that's what you were talking about here with regards to maybe getting a thunderstorm around or after midnight. That's that complex that's moving eastward.
We used to call it we used to call it an MCC, a mesoscale convective complex. They don't call them MCCs anymore, Joe, or even an MCS, mesoscale convective system. There's a whole new terminology which I've seen like once or twice, and I never really penetrated far enough into my cranium or my brain for it to stick. But it's they don't. I should look at the
too many
some
acronyms.
of the technical discussions.
It's just too many acronyms. And I'm 62. I don't remember. I remember FBI, CIA, and a few others. It's just way too many acronyms and And
IRS, M&Ms.
Yes, exactly. Here's Barry Goldberg hitting super chat just now. Thank you, Barry. Nice to see you watching the show tonight. Hope everything is going well. And I think I said Robert Russo hit it earlier before the show started. So we had a pre-show super chat there. There's what it looks like on the radar. And there's also an east-west line of storms lying just north of Route I don't know if that's Route 80 or the Pennsylvania Turnpike. Because Route 80 goes in Western PA actually goes down south, and I think they got that route drawn a little incorrectly, but no matter. You can see that east-west line in the north central PA. That'll save me, and some other heavier showers up further north moving into central New York. Just like the top of that is just now passing Rochester and approaching Syracuse. This is what is moving eastward, and one of those rare instances where it actually holds up during the overnight period.
Well, they actually have and I'm not looking specifically at the counties. I'm looking at the aviation rhomboid or rectangle, so to speak, which is pretty much along and south of Interstate 80, Joe. That thunderstorm or aviation weather watch persists until 1 a.m. And who's to say that they may not add on to that? It looks like a lot of the activity is going to be, in this particular case, from about New York City and points south. So you folks who are watching, let's say in north central New Jersey and right along the coast to just north of Toms River, you may get into that too in the late night hours or after midnight hours tonight. Again, doesn't happen too often. Usually by this time we are talking about thunderstorm watches and areas of showers and storms that are petering out due to the diurnal influence. The sun is going down, the atmosphere is cooling, and things will gradually diminish. But in this particular case, that doesn't look like it's going to be so. It looks like we may see some of this activity persist right on through the after midnight hours tonight.
This just in, we have a new severe thunderstorm watch up. That covers parts of northern New Jersey and northeastern. I don't know what delineates northeast Pennsylvania versus eastern Pennsylvania. It's kind of in the southeastern part of northeastern Pennsylvania. How's that? And it's in northern New Jersey, north and west of the Turnpike, but away from the coastal counties. Okay, it's a very, very small. This is one of the smaller, Joe. Look at the screen. You should be able to see it here from SPC. This is one of the smaller severe. Usually the boxes are much bigger than this. I pulled up the aviation box here. It's kind of on the smallish side. There's just a handful of counties that are involved in this, but they just issued it 5 minutes ago.
Well, are they listening to us?
You know, naturally.
Amazing,
So I guess
amazing.
there are only 12 counties that are involved in this severe thunderstorm watch. Just 12. That's one. I think that might be the smallest severe thunderstorm watch I've ever seen in terms of square miles, and maybe not so much in counties, because out in the parts of the west, county could be like half a state.
What was that? What was that hurricane? What was that hurricane a year or two ago? You called it a glorified
Yeah,
thunderstorm.
wasn't it Beryl, I think, out in the, and yeah, that was a glorified severe thunderstorm. But
And the area of hurricane warnings could probably have fit inside of this latest thunderstorm
or
watch.
less. So if you're for New Jersey, it's Hunterdon, Morris, Mercer, Somerset, Middlesex, and Warren counties. And the counties in Pennsylvania that are involved are the neighboring counties of Bucks, Luzerne, Carbon, Monroe, Lehigh, and Northampton County, or counties. So there you have it. Probably the smallest watch we've ever seen in terms of geography. So they're looking at the same things we are, and that line is, most of it's probably going to hold together. It'll come through, do what it has to do. I don't think this is any kind of flash flood issue. It should be moving fast enough that even if you get some heavy rains, it's not gonna last too long. And gusty winds will that's probably the biggest issue with all of this. The other watch, by the way, which is in effect, if I can get this page to go back, let's send it back to SPC's homepage. Well, you have to go and do it this way. Let's see, I'll pull up the other watch that's up. That's just to the west of this new watch. It almost looks like it's an extension of the first watch box. That particular watch box is, here it comes. So that covers the areas just west of this one. This one has been up for quite a while, and this actually doesn't expire until 1 a.m., although the strongest storms now are on the east side of the box. So I'm thinking they'll probably start to chop that down on the western end. So those are the two. It's interesting to me, Joe. You look at their risk area that they set up for today. They're good. I mean, every once in a while they throw in a clunker, but these forecasts are spot on a lot of the time. And they just had this narrow, slight risk area from just touching southern New York and covering northern Pennsylvania from northwest to the northwest side to the eastern side, and the northern half of New Jersey to about New York City. And that's kind of how this is all playing out in terms of where they have those watch boxes up.
Yeah, do you have share capability right now on?
One moment, please. I forgot. I was so busy being director of the year that I forgot to give you. There you go. You got it.
Okay, so why don't we take a look? I still have RPM. I still have Futurecast, so to speak, capabilities to show everybody. And you'll find this most interesting. This is what you're seeing on the screen right now is the Futurecast projection. This is for our forecast hour 2, which is 2300, which actually is 7 o'clock. That was an hour ago. So let's move it forward here to 8 o'clock. Now take a look here at this right here, this red shaded zone, and you can almost see how it's kind of like if it moves right along the shape of this thunderstorm area, this line, if you will, you could see where this is pointing to. This is pointing like almost pointing like Sandy Hook. So this would be for 8 o'clock. Here's 9 o'clock. Here's 10 o'clock. And this is 10:30. So it looks like, Joe, around 10:30, this is going to be the story. This looks like this. If you take this at face value, places, as I said, north of Toms River up to about New York City. And look at this, the way this is set up. This, if you take this at face value, I get nothing out of this. I don't get a raindrop,
A flake or an
snowflake,
ice
an ice
pellet.
pellet.
Nothing. Not a thing.
Yeah, it just goes straight to our south. And wow, look at that! It seemed to like intensify just as it's moving off the coast. So maybe, just maybe, around 10:30, 11 o'clock, you folks, let's say around Staten Island, Sandy Hook, maybe if you live on the south shore of Nassau County, look off to the south, you'll have an interesting light show to enjoy. What did you say?
I have no idea.
I have no idea either. I mean, am I coming through okay, by the way?
I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you are. I can't.
Okay.
I can't see.
Oh, Joe.
Yes. Oh, this.
According to
Right. I got you.
According to the executive.
I got it.
According to the executive producer.
I got it. Yeah. There we go. My fault. I'm watching 3 monitors here, and yeah, it's on there now. Go ahead. Thank you. I'm voices. Voices. I'm hearing voices. Oh.
That's why she's the executive producer, right?
Yes.
All right. So let's go backwards. This is 2:30 Greenwich time or Universal time or Z time or whatever. So that would be blah blah blah. No, excuse me. That's 2.5 hours into this Futurecast or RPM. So this is for 7:30, and this is for 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock, 9:30, 10 o'clock. You could see what we're talking about, what we have been talking about for 5 minutes, even though you couldn't see it initially, but now you can see it. If you take the RPM model at face value, sometime around 10 to about 11 o'clock, there's going to be significant storm activity occurring just to the south of the immediate New York City metropolitan areas. I said I live up here, and I would not get a single drop of rain out of this. But if you live, let's say, in New York and point south, if you live around Sandy Hook, or if you live in Nassau County and look along the south shore of Nassau County, you may be in for a bit of a light show if this puts on enough potency in terms of thunder and lightning or whatever. This is for, again, about 11 o'clock tonight, and it continues to move on a trajectory east-southeast, eventually taking it out to sea. And then after midnight, this kind of shrivels up, and there's nothing left of it. And supposedly for the remainder of the night, we don't see anything at all. So whatever happens, it looks like it's going to, as we follow that zone, that, as I mentioned earlier, that what looks to me like an MCC, a mesoscale convective complex in central Pennsylvania. If it holds together, it will eventually interact with portions of the tri-state area, but it looks like mostly from about New York City and points south, and before it moves on out to sea in the after midnight hours tonight.
All right. Why don't you load up the European while you have it there, and then we'll come back to the European in a little while. And I'll remember.
Right, this is
excuse
90,
me.
90 hours.
Yeah, I'll remember to switch screens.
I'm only up to 50, I'm only up to 54 hours on that one right now, though.
Okay, but, so by the time we get through the rest of these maps, you'll have more of it. All right, SPC for tomorrow has a marginal risk in upstate New York and northwest PA, although it kind of goes right across northern PA on an angle there. And you see the slight risk is in eastern Michigan, northern Indiana, northwest Ohio, back to a small portion of east central Illinois. The marginal risk going all the way back to Kansas and Colorado. Wednesday, interestingly enough, they didn't change this from earlier today. So far, they left it alone. Where's the day 3 outlook? Come on, get the day 3 outlook. There we go. Again, this was in the long range yesterday, and they've got a slight risk from Maine, most of New Hampshire, the southern half of Vermont, most of the western part of Massachusetts, a chunk of eastern New York, and the middle and upper Hudson Valley. It looks like the slight risk line starts maybe in northern Dutchess County and goes northward, and then it extends across northeast PA to southwest PA. The marginal risk The border of the marginal risk runs right along southern New England, north shore of Long Island to about New York City to northern Hunterdon County, and then continuing down into western Virginia. I'm sorry, western Maryland, West Virginia, southern Ohio, and on up into Kentucky.
West Virginia.
Please don't remind me. Joe, I drove in Maryland. You see where Maryland, Virginia, and West Virginia come together?
Yes.
There, okay. I was on a state road Friday night where I drove in from Maryland, and when I crossed over the border into Virginia, my GPS said, "Welcome to Virginia." And then literally a minute later, I got, "Welcome to West Virginia." I was like, "What? Wait, what?" And then I got, about 5 minutes later, I got a, "Welcome to Virginia" again. So I crossed it there 3 times. I wanted to get down and deep into Virginia, and it wasn't letting me, but I finally did. Yeah, they got that risk area. I was driving that risk area on state roads because they were doing construction on 66 out of Washington, D.C. to get to 81. So it put me on a longer route. I was not happy. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
So this risk area is with this next cold front, and most of it obviously is north and west of the coast. Maybe, just maybe, we might see them expand this a little bit tomorrow because with the warm sector the way it is and with the high dew points all over the place, if the front is pressing in maybe a little bit further to the south, you might have a bigger area of thunderstorms to contend with. And just taking a look at the GFS, the GFS actually, that was another thing today, Joe, that I found really interesting was I pulled up a whole bunch of short range models, and you could barely find these thunderstorms on any of the short range models. And I started thinking, so they got a slight risk up, though. It's like they wouldn't necessarily put up a slight risk, and it's trying to find it on the short range models. Finally, as we got into the middle of the day, it started picking up on this cluster that was moving out of Michigan and moving to the east. Now tomorrow, I'm thinking nothing. Tomorrow should be okay. As far as shower and thunderstorms are concerned, probably won't see anything for the most part. And then here's that front for Wednesday, and that gets pretty active there. This is at 8 o'clock Wednesday evening, but again, you can see how far north and west it is. And then some of it holds on as it gets to the coast. And then after that, this is where I start to get, I really am a little bit uncertain with how this plays out. You can see in Texas, Nicholas comes inland, kind of slowly moves northeast and east. You lose the low, but the moisture kind of sort of holds together as it moves through Alabama and Mississippi on Wednesday. And then the front Wednesday does what all these fronts have done, Joe. It just kind of stalls out on top of us. And now you got also, some kind of low that may or may not form off the East Coast there, off the Carolinas. You see it there on the GFS from Thursday afternoon. It's got some showery rains. I tend to think that unless it goes back to the look it had late last week where it had a wrapped up looking low, which looked like a low to mid-range tropical storm, and unless it goes back to something like that, and unless the ridge out in the Atlantic is stronger, which is, by the way, not out of the question. We saw that with Henri, how it kind of didn't figure that part of the equation out until the last minute. The models have been kind of taking it out to the northeast and passing that low to the south. So worst comes to worst, we get some showery rains Wednesday night into Thursday evening, and then it goes away. And then we're just back to very warm and humid conditions for Friday and going into the weekend. And I didn't even see any real cold front coming through here. I mean, this is the first real chance for a cold front. Might not be until next Thursday, which is like the 23rd. And by that time on the lower right, the GFS has a hurricane out there. So who knows if that's right or
not. Yes. There is as yet insufficient data for a meaningful answer.
Yes, I agree.
I'm gonna get a T-shirt and it's gonna put on the front. Do away, get rid of the 7 and 10 day outlook.
It'll never happen.
It'll never happen.
It's not going to happen. It's
if anything, like WGN out in Chicago will be the first to say, and we have the 15-day forecast. And
15 days,
enjoy that.
20 days, 30 days. All right, let's look at Nicholas close up. The Hurricane Center has a new advisory out, so we'll give you the new coordinates here as soon as it's done reloading. And here we are, 28.1 north, 96.2 west, the latitude and longitude. Maximum sustained winds are now 70 miles an hour, moving north-northeast at 12. So it's got a little more time before, a few more hours before it moves inland. So who knows? It might, it might briefly hit minimal hurricane strength before landfall. And then you can see it makes a right turn, a fairly sharp right turn into southeast Texas and then across Louisiana as a depression, passing north of Baton Rouge. And then the remnant depression is in southern Mississippi, southwestern Mississippi, by 1 p.m. on Thursday. NHC is now, this is in addition to all the rains that have fallen in the last 2 days. So we're looking at another 6 to 10 inches in parts of southeast Texas, go from about halfway between Corpus Christi and Houston, and then eastward over to about Lake Charles, right in that band. Houston is just north and west of that. They're in the 4 to 6 inch zone of additional rainfall, we should say. We should make a point of saying that. And also some patchy 6 to 10 inch rainfalls in parts of Louisiana. Why don't we pull up a couple of radars? Let's go first. I'll go on the U.S. view so we can get kind of a wide regional look at this. And you see it here. Now, they were saying, Joe, on the discussion that they were having trouble there were multiple wind centers. The system didn't seem to be able to kind of get one center. It said like 3 centers running around. That actually is not that unusual. But now it's got this sort of comma-shaped look to it as it lifts up northward. So you get down to Corpus Christi, Port Aransas, Corpus Christi, down to Brownsville. The rain's all over with there. And the concentration of heavy rains now further up the coast. You got this really big band of heavy rain about to swing to Galveston and toward Houston. And then there's moderate rain going on near Beaumont, Port Arthur, over to Lake Charles, and then maybe as far east as about Lafayette. Not much going on in New Orleans. They're sort of on the edge of the aloft precip. It looks most of it is, for now at least, it is to the west of New Orleans.
Yes. Yeah. If we were able to build some kind of a force field or some kind of a giant, if there was a way to contain Nicholas from making landfall, then I guess we could say Nicholas was caged, right?
Yes, we can. Yeah. Or you can, anyway. Yes. I wouldn't go, I'm not the sort of creature that goes down that road. There's a recon there now, so let's see what they got. Looks like they closed off one center, 989 pressure. And as far as the winds, now there are purple barbs here. That's 64 to 83 knots. So if it's not a minimal hurricane, it's pretty darn close. I don't know what the actual peak wind that they reported, but coming in from the northeast, there's quite a few of those purple barbs there. So don't be shocked if they wind up on the next advisory, if they nudge it up another 5 miles an hour to make it a minimal hurricane before landfall. But it's not going to get much beyond that because it is going to go in. It might take a while. This is one of those situations, Joe, where it's going to go inland, but it's not going to go that far inland. A lot of the circulation is going to remain over the water, so it'll probably weaken slowly. And ultimately, rain is the big issue. So if it starts slowing down and turning more to the northeast, where it tracks right along, just inland of the coast, some areas are really going to get clobbered with rain out of this. They already have, and they're going to get even more.
Did you try to contact our former associate, Mr. Green?
You know what? That was on my to-do list today, and I forgot. I forgot to reach out to him. So
he's probably.
I'm sure he's busy, even though he should drop everything he's doing to do the Joe and Joe show, and normally he would, because he's such a loyal friend. But we'll give him a pass, so this way he can continue to earn his living, which is a good thing. Anyhow, you see on we'll check the recon again maybe before we're done for the night. And I did also put up. Yeah, it's kind of funny the hurricane tracking models late this afternoon, kind of earlier today, and for the last few runs, they've all been pretty close together, even in the long range. And then today, they suddenly late this afternoon, they kind of went a bit all over the place. Some of them taking it more northerly up the Mississippi Valley. A few of them taking it northeast. Ultimately, I think this is not going to be a repeat of Ida. Okay, let's just make that clear. This is not going to be a repeat of Ida up here. Better not be. But we don't have the upper air setup that we had with Ida. We don't have a really well-defined circulation. It was a Category 4 hurricane. We don't have that well-defined circulation, and we don't have the northern jet coming in with a nice, a nice little trough that came down. Nice is probably not the right word, but it was a small trough that came down in the northern stream and energized this. We don't have that in the upper air this time around. So even if some of the moisture does get out up here, I'm thinking it'll probably get stretched out, strewn out, and it'll just rain itself out as whatever identifiable feature is left if it winds up coming up the Appalachians. I'm not really too concerned about that.
Isn't it amazing now that we have to put up, at least for the moment, we have to with each tropical system, we have to say no, there's not going to be a repeat of Ida. It's kind of crazy. I can remember we've done that with other storms in the past. No, this is not going to be another Sandy. No, it's not going to be like Floyd.
Yeah, well, that's what happens.
Even after all of these days, we get, people get shell shocked at what happened, and that's probably the first thing that comes into their mind when they hear about the prospective, tropical system. Oh, is this going to be another? No, it's not. So let's move on.
Meanwhile, I just pulled up the upper air here for tomorrow night, and the westerly winds in the upper atmosphere in Canada are actually quite busy, but they're westerlies. We don't see any troughs that are kind of dropping down into the southern part of the United States that we've seen from time to time. So Nicholas, which is represented by that little upper low that's in Louisiana tomorrow night, is just underneath that westerly flow. And as we go through the next few days that follows, it really doesn't pick it up. The northern part of that jet actually pulls up, and what's left of Nicholas is just kind of lingering in there in that weakness that is down the Appalachians. Meanwhile, we do have this Atlantic ridge here that's holding its own, and somewhere in this zone in here is where we're probably going to see a low try to develop. And again, unless we see it revert to something that we saw back last week in the models, and none of them have done that, by the way. They've all kind of gotten on this idea that this is going to be a weak low that's not going to bother anybody. I would think it should move right along the periphery of that ridge offshore and just sort of pass by to the south and east the way the GFS described. And again, the northern part of the jet stream is well to the north. It's not getting involved here. So I'm at this right now, I would not be all that concerned with it. And then going forward, we still, Joe, looking at the long range through the weekend. The ridge builds back into the east over the weekend, into the northeast, in fact. The upper high is in the Gulf of Maine. And then there's a trough that swings around through the Great Lakes. Now here, I'm thinking this is the wave that's moving off the African coast now, that this run of the GFS, and the European did something with this too, is what you see there on the lower right. And there's that trough swinging into the east, and then that winds up on this run anyway. Then there's another deeper trough that comes down right there, and it takes it up along 60. Let's see what happens. Let's see what this looks like tomorrow. I'm going to be curious to see in a couple of days how this is this shows up. Because you look at this upper air, Joe, it's not beyond imagination that that trough could be a little further to the west. And if there is something out there, maybe it makes the turn a little bit further to the west. We'll see. I mean, we're talking here, 11 days from now. So who knows? We might even come here tomorrow. Tomorrow we may look at this and it may not even be there.
And then again, it may run right to the north and northeast and hit Newfoundland,
which is what it did on this run.
Weekend.
There it is, and that's what this run did. Almost a very similar track to Larry on this run. Passes actually goes over Bermuda. It's a little bit further to the west, and then passes just southeast. Passes southeast of Nova Scotia by a fair distance. It goes right over to eastern Newfoundland. And by the way, if it's right about this, let's forget about any kind of tropical involvement. But if it's right about these troughs, this is where we'll probably get some decent humidity relief around the 22nd or so of 22nd, 23rd of September, and then a stronger shot of cool air coming down out of Canada to finish off the last days of the month, at least if you want to believe this. Gets to look a little blocky there toward the end, though, too.
And the next storm on the list is the O storm, which would be Odette.
Okay.
And Joe, I've only known in my entire life, I've only known one person, and it wasn't even a real person; it was a fictional person who had the name Odette. If you remember, and this goes really old time television, there was a show on in the 1950s starring Gail Storm. My Little Margie. Remember that?
I remember it. I think I watched one episode and didn't care for it.
Margie used to like to team up with this little old lady, and the little old lady had a very maniacal mind, and she was Mrs. Odette, and they would always get into mischief. That was right. Oh, Mrs. Odette, are you thinking that we're going to get into mischief here? Oh, Maggie. Anyway, the only Odette I ever knew was from that TV show. And anyway, that's the next storm on the list. And who knows? That's the storm that may try to mimic what Larry did this past weekend, relative to Bermuda and relative to Newfoundland. So we'll see how that pans out too.
I'm going to pull up the hazards map. Just give me a moment here. I'll let it load up. We can take a look at some obs along the Texas coast to see what's going on from the standpoint of wind conditions. It's just going to take a moment here to get going. And while that's
low. Wait a minute. Bill Rogers has posted something on the chat board. Ah, yes. To add to Mayor de Blasio and Governor Hochul, I guess we now have to add Senator Schumer. He according to Bill Rogers, Senator Schumer said that the mesonets on New York State need to be upgraded, and that is why the forecast for Ida busted, even though they didn't bust.
You want to upgrade the mesonets? Have at it. I'm totally for it, but no one is buying the fact that you say the forecast busted because it didn't. Okay, I have responses on my Facebook page, and I'm sure all the weather people have the same thing, showing that this was no bust except and that reminds me, by the way, I'm not going to reveal who this is, okay? I'm going to respect his privacy. But someone I know, retired NWS, the day before, messaged New York City folks, New York City political folks in high places, and told them that this was going to be per WPC and NHC and any other C's you want to put in there, that this was going to be a historic rain event, okay, and to prepare for it, okay. They knew, and they chose to ignore it. So let's stop the nonsense with this idea that this was a bust. It was no bust, okay. You went to sleep, and it's not. Our job is to forecast. Our job is not to do your job.
And Bill Rogers, who was the one who posted this quote from Senator Schumer, now wants to know what a mesonet is. And a mesonet, Bill, is a network of collectively owned and operated automated weather stations that are installed close enough to each other and report data frequently enough to provide meaningful mesoscale meteorological information on such phenomena such as dry lines, squall lines, sea breezes, and of course also tropical cyclones such as Ida to hone in. But you see, this demonstrates to you why Senator Schumer should just tend to being a politician and not a meteorologist, because he gives the idea in his statement, well, the mesonets failed. They did a terrible job. No, Senator, they did not do a terrible job. Their purpose is to observe. Their purpose is to look at what is happening at any given moment and provide you with information that of what is happening. They don't give you a forecast, Senator Schumer, 6 and 12 and 18 and 24 hours out.
Yeah,
you don't use mesosnets for that.
It's current weather, for God's sake.
It's current weather. So, I mean, if you have a mesonet that's telling you it's raining at the rate of 2 inches per hour, it's working fine.
Yeah,
and I'm sure that many of the mesonets were doing a yeoman's job in their automated way of doing that. It has nothing to do. And he says, well, because the mesonets fail. Senator, stick to politics, please. Don't get into our realm, please.
Well,
please.
This is their way of deflecting blame away from themselves. First, they tried to throw us under the bus, and that didn't work. So now they're throwing the equipment under the bus. Okay, but yeah, a mesonet is not going to tell you the day before that it's going to be raining at 3 inches an hour 24 hours from now. That's not what they do. Okay, they take current obs. Oh, good Lord. Really, it just needs to stop. It just needs to stop. I'm looking here, Joe. There's the Brazos 4451 oil platform. Now, the anemometer is 30 feet up in the air, and they are sustained 26, but gusting to 56 on that one buoy. All the buoys all the oil rigs are kind of shut down anyway, so we don't have too many obs from out there unless they're automated. Port O'Connor is 37, gusting to 53. We have a 41. Palacios Municipal Airport is 41 from the northeast, gusting to 47. San Bernard is east-northeast at 26, gusting to 44. Let's see, Matagorda Island is north at 26, gusting to 45. So, I mean, they are certainly getting tropical storm force wind gusts along the coastal bend. And actually, even inland, they're getting some. Bay City, which is not near the coast, it's actually inland, is 37, gusting to 49. And I'll pull up another one. I can't pronounce that, so I'll skip that one. I can pronounce that, but it doesn't have any wind report. Edna, Texas, is 24, gusting to 40, and that is, quite a ways inland. And I'll just move up a little bit up the coast to look at what's going on in the Houston area. They're kind of on the edge, starting to getting some gust to gale force at the coast. Galveston Bay at the entrance is east-southeast at 33, 27, gusting to 33. And you're seeing some gusts up in the high 20s as you move up in the northern parts of Galveston Bay toward Baytown. And then the winds kind of drop off a bit as you make your way further north to the Houston area. But you get the idea here. I mean, the winds are cranking a bit on the shore, but we're not seeing any 70-mile-an-hour wind gusts to reflect that 989 pressure. So again, it's got a short window here before it does move inland to strengthen a bit more. It might get to minimal hurricane. It might not. But either way, it goes in as a high-end tropical storm. It'll still rain the rain is the bigger deal.
Yes, and people say, well, yeah, as long as we don't get the wind, the rain isn't going to be too bad. But as we have seen over the last last several weeks with Henri and especially with Ida. Rain can be the killer, especially if you get an excessive amount of it. So we hope that the folks who already have been battered about this season in New Orleans or Louisiana are not going to get hit too badly from Nicholas. And yeah, what more can I say?
Yeah.
Somebody said on the news tonight. I have not done the actual calculation or whatever, but supposedly we would not get to the N storm until sometime early in November. I know we're ahead, but I didn't know we were that far ahead in terms of the naming. And I'll tell you what, if you're sometime in the last 30 years or so, all of a sudden we began to see the numbers of tropical cyclones increase to the point where the naming system has caused some of these names to occur earlier in the season. But again, you and I, Joe, have often said many times here on Joe and Joe that 30 years ago they were looking at some systems that they would never have even have labeled a name or labeled as,
Right.
as a depression or whatever. And now every little thing is listed and labeled and acquires a name a lot quicker. So it may have something to do with the change in climate over the last 3 decades or so, but I also would want to factor in the technology and the subjectivity of these forecasters who are looking at these things either on radar and on satellites and whatever, and saying, "Hey, yeah, that could be. Why don't we give it a name?" It's the blend of man and machine, and man has had some say in the reason why we're seeing more of these tropical systems as opposed to, let's say, 20 or 30 years ago.
With the GOES satellites now, especially, I mean, they see things that they couldn't see before. To be fair, It's probably a little bit of both. It's probably the fact that with the satellites now, they can see things that are out in the Atlantic that 30 or 40 years ago, they really could, maybe they would see them twice a day. And maybe the criteria is, maybe the criteria has been adjusted in terms of what they deem acceptable as a closed circulation. I don't know. I don't want to. I don't want to, go down that particular road without having any knowledge to back it up. But they do such a fine job. I just kind of want to give them the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, every once in a while they do glorify a thunderstorm. they do glorify it with a name. Let's do a little Briller Jeopardy and wrap this up.
I think I have a question.
You do. I think you do.
I think I have your questions tonight.
Okay.
Yes. So let me just check here. Come on. Let's go. I gotta. I'm sure you've mentioned this, more than enough times, Joe. But the way the new Facebook pages are, I have to go through like 3 or 4 additional steps now. Okay, so here is another Briller Jeopardy supplied by the one and only Scott, the chairman Briller. It is actually supplied by one of the Joe and Joe moderators, our tropical expert, Anthony Orr. So if you have a problem tonight, Joe, you can blame Anthony for that.
Okay.
Although I guess Anthony's job is to try to stump us, or stump you in this case tonight. So here is question number 1. What 5 years did the Susquehanna
Hat Company? What 5 years did the Susquehanna Hat Company have its offices on Bagel Street? Go on.
What 5 years did the Susquehanna River crest the highest between 1970 and 20? Now, before we get any further in my saying this question, I just want to say to Anthony, it's one thing to do a question. It's another thing to delve deep down into the very trivial minutia.
Yeah, but
he's asking you, Joe,
it may not necessarily be as trivial minutia as you think. So let's think about the Susquehanna River. which runs through Pennsylvania. And by the way, I have fished the Susquehanna River. It's a beautiful river.
Okay.
So let's think about hurricanes that have had huge impacts in the state of Pennsylvania. So why don't we start with Agnes in 1972?
Okay. Well, the question is, which 5 years did the Susquehanna crest the highest between 1970 and 2020 at Wilkes-Barre or Wilkes-Barre? Is it Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania? Only need 2 to pass.
Okay.
Now you said Agnes.
Let's say 1972, because that, I think the records for the statewide rainfalls still hold from that. So
right.
I'll say 1972
is one of the 5 on the list.
Okay. Now let's also think. I'm thinking, what year was Floyd?
That was 99.
Okay. And Irene was in 11, correct?
Correct.
So let's say 2011.
That is number 2.
Oh.
You got number so far. So you actually passed because it says you only need 2
Needed
to pass.
2.
2 out of 5. So
let me try my luck with one more. So, you know, in my mind, in this vague gray matter that's like melting and fading away and practically oozing out now, because I'm getting to that point where I don't even remember my own name half the time. Why did the mid 90s stand out for me for some reason? I'm thinking middle 90s, like 95 or 96, maybe 96. Something, was tropical?
Yep. Joe, you got a third.
No kidding. Whoa.
Yeah. Whoa.
Oh, good Lord. And now there's 2 more.
Right.
2 more. All right. So, I mean, I don't know. My luck's going to run out. So what year was Floyd again? You said 1999.
1999.
99.
The 20th century.
Well, all right. So I'll just take a wild guess and say 99.
Well, that's a guess that's too wild. Unfortunately, not on the list.
Okay. And I don't know. As far as the rest of them, I who knows? Those were.
Well, you got 70. You got 72. You got 96. You got 2011. You needed to be perfect. 1975 and 2004.
Okay. Well, I was just kind of thinking in terms of like tropical stuff. I just sort of put that in my head. So, all right. Well, that's not too shabby.
They still got 3 out of 5, and you did win. You weren't perfect, but you did win.
All right. Well, I try. I don't always succeed, but I do try. So
I'm so happy that nobody has complained about my honking. So maybe it was the battery. I left the battery. I was charging this battery.
Yeah, I haven't heard it. I haven't heard it once.
Great. Well, I took 24 hours to charge, but that may have been the culprit. So.
Okay. Well, we'll remember it for next time then.
Yes.
If assuming there is a next time.
Yeah.
We don't want there to be a next time. Anyhow, the Joe and Joe show tonight has been brought to you by a big mound of salt. No, it's brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon. And by the way, not only are they getting salt in, but the brands are coming in as well. Pelledo, the Mag Ice Pellets and Flakes, and plus they have their own store brand, and you'll be able to get all your winter equipment. I know you're saying, Joe, it's September, but we're in that sprint now between Labor Day and Christmas where time just flies by. So it's not a bad thing if you need to get these things early to go ahead and take care of it now. Then, of course, there's Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini, your complete holiday lighting specialist, meeting all your decorating needs at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst, New York. Their phone number is 957-5106, and they're having a holiday lighting open house. It's a free event on Tuesday, the 5th of October, 2021, from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So if you're interested in getting your home decorated professionally, or maybe you want to think about doing this as your own business, this will be a good day to go and check them out at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst. That is Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini. So now I brought us back to the screen here, and we can say goodnight. Any last minute thoughts before we say goodbye?
I'm just thinking ahead. October, at least one time when I up here where I am, was the pre-Halloween snowstorm, and I had 14 inches of heavy wet snow that fell a couple of days before Halloween back in 2011. It was the
Right,
same
and
year of Irene.
that was the heaviest snowfall of the whole winter.
Right, that's absolutely true.
Because that was
and broke a lot of
La Nina
branches
year.
and trees and everything else.
That was a big La Nina year, and the snow in the Northeast was minimal in a lot of places. So, all right.
Yeah.
We'll be back tomorrow night at the same bat time, 7:30 Eastern time. So hopefully we'll see everybody then. Thank you again for the super chat hits that we got tonight from Barry Goldberg and Robert Russo. And there's Joe on a full screen. There we go. Hold on. I switched too soon here. I'm like trigger. There we go. And we'll be taking a look at everything tomorrow night. We'll see maybe if what's the situation is with the stuff in the Atlantic, and of course we'll see what's going on with Nicholas as it moves its way inland. And we'll be looking at the Wednesday severe weather threat for the inland areas of the Northeast. Nighty-night, everybody.
And
go ahead.
And to those who made the comment after I made my little political statement, no, I have no plans to run for New York Senate in the foreseeable future.
Oh, by the way, the final result of our poll, by the way, tonight, with 130 votes cast, 78% of the respondents voted yes to the question, 4 tropical storms have impacted the Northeast this year. Is a fifth system in the cards? 72% said yes, and 78% said yes, and 22% said no. Okay, we'll see everybody tomorrow night. Good night.
Night-night.